Greetings, everyone. This is Jeff Wilkerson, Professor of Physics at Luther College, bringing you the next in our series of what to look for in the night sky. We're talking about the week of May 20th this time around. And one of the things we do, right, if you've watched these videos, one of the things we do is we think about how the sky reminds us of the same but different. The sky just keeps rolling around, and we see the same things again and again and again, but everything's changing subtly, and everything's a little bit different often, and we can find other things to look at. And so, one part of that is we're going to talk about some of the things we did last week, and one of the reasons we talk about some of the things we did last week is because about 2 weeks out of every 4, every month, we can't look at faint objects because the moon's too bright. We've got a pretty significant moon this week, and so this forces us to look at planets and some of the brighter stars and the moon itself. So we have a lot of the same things that came up, but it's different and in a different context this week. So we get that sense of here's the sky, here's the familiar sky that we love and that we see and that we look at every week, and here's a little bit slightly different take on it. And here's how it's a little bit the same as last week and a little bit different from last week. So that's the backstory. That's what we got going on this week, and we'll start with the moon itself. The moon begins the week 90 to 95% full, and it's near Spica where we left it last week. And it tracks east. That's what things do. They tend to track east against the background stars unless they're in retrograde motion. And so the moon starts near Spica. It goes through Libra, through Scorpius, and through Sagittarius at the end of the week. So you can watch it pass all of these background stars this week. As it does so, it fills out and then starts to wane away. And by the end of the week, 85% full. So what that means is next week, it'll be waning away pretty well, and in the evening in particular, it'll be up in the morning. So we'll have an evening sky to observe, and we'll think about what kinds of interesting objects we can look at in the evening sky without the moon washing it out. So that's what we got going on with the moon. But in the middle of that progression across there, on Wednesday, about 10:30 my time, last week, we talked about the moon blinking out, occulting, passing in front of Zavijava in Scorpius, in Virgo, where it starts the week this week in Scorpius, the brightest star in Scorpius, big, bright orange Antares. So what makes this great is Antares is a very bright star that holds up well to the moon's light splashing around and washing things out. So even with a very full moon, quite near it, you ought to be able to pick Antares out, and binoculars will help you if you can't. If the sky is so bright from this, checking out the area with binoculars, you can see it. But for a lot of people in North America, the moon is going to occult Antares, a big bright star. So it's one of the brightest stars that you can watch the moon pass in front of it. For me, it's going to happen right around 10:30 p.m. on the 23rd. It depends. These kinds of occultations, you picture the geometry, right? Here you are, there's the moon, the background star's way out there. If you're on Earth just a little bit further south, you project the moon a little bit further north into the sky. If you're a little bit further north, you project the moon a little bit further south. And these kinds of occultations, these kinds of grazing contacts are so close, they're so hairline that it matters where you are when you see it and why you see it. But for me, it's going to be about 10:30. Watch for the moon. If you don't see the moon where you happen to be, occult Antares, it's still going to be a very impressive close grazing of the bright star and the bright moon. So that's what the moon's going to do for us. We looked at the planets Mars and Saturn last week. By now, Saturn's up in the sky by 3:30. So by 3:30 or so, you've still got a while before it starts to get daylight. You can see Saturn glowing in the sky, and it is separating now from Phi Aquarii. We were measuring it against Phi Aquarii last week. This week, the separation grows from about 1 degree to 1 1/3 degrees. It's close enough. That's a tiny little bit of movement, but the two things are close enough. That's movement you should be able to detect this week. We were looking at Mars last week as well, and I didn't draw Mars on here. Look at that. So what Mars is doing is Mars is moving relative to two stars in Pisces, Epsilon and Delta in Pisces, and it starts the week here. And these are faint 4.5 magnitude stars, and that's about 3 degrees. And it ends the week about 3 degrees from Epsilon Piscium, but it's way over here. So Mars is moving all the way over here, and so watch it makes almost a right triangle to start the week, a little bit acute. It's not quite right. It's tipped up that way a little bit. And then it's almost a straight line, not quite, by the end of the week out this direction. So watch Mars tracking along there and look at, it's making a grouping with these relatively faint stars in Pisces. Now, if you're up at 3:30 to watch Saturn rising up into the sky, Mars you need to be a little bit later. Mars is going to follow it up a little bit. But you don't have a lot of time because it starts to get light early. But by 4 o'clock, you should be able to pick Mars out of the sky pretty well, I think. Maybe even before that. But if you're up at 3:30, the summer triangle is this big, bright grouping of 3 stars we see high overhead in the summertime, particularly late summertime, so that now Vega is the brightest of these stars. So Vega is crossing the meridian line, the line that collects north and south. Vega's crossing the meridian line about 3:30, about when you would be up, 3:30 in the morning, when you would be up to see Saturn rising into the sky. There's Vega high overhead, big and beautiful and bright. Vega's the 5th brightest star in the sky. So it's a very bright star. Deneb will also be up behind it. So as it gets dark, that's a way to think about it. If it's directly overhead, if it's on the meridian line, which is, the meridian line is the line that connects north to south overhead. It goes directly overhead. But the point that's directly overhead is the zenith. Those are for objects that can appear on the zenith have declinations that are equal to your latitude. And for me, Vega's very close. Where I'm here at 43 degrees north latitude. Vega's pretty close, but it depends how close it gets to directly overhead depends very much on your north-south position on the Earth. But in any event, as it gets dark now, the summer triangle is rising. You look to the east, and Vega, 5th brightest star in the sky, so big bright star coming up in the east. Deneb will also be up in the east. Altair, the 3rd star of the summer triangle, might or might not be visible right when it's first getting dark. You might need to wait an hour or so, and then watch Altair crawl across the horizon over there. And Deneb is the 18th brightest star in the sky. And so Deneb's a big bright star, but not as bright as Vega is. And so you got your summer triangle here, but these are the 2 stars that will be there as the evening opens up. Now Vega is the brightest star in the constellation Lyra. And Lyra, we can look at these bright stars. We can enjoy the 5th brightest star in the sky, even with the moonlight washing us out all week. There's some interesting things to look at in Lyra that I don't think we want to go try to see this week because of the moon interference. But there are some other things that we can see. Vega is the big bright star here. We see a parallelogram below Vega of 4 stars, 2 faint stars. Delta at 5.5 magnitude, Zeta at 4.3. Remember, the magnitude system counts backward. Every step in magnitude is a multiplicative factor of 2.5 in how bright the star appears to you. And so these are relatively hard stars to see. You can see them. I can see them. But below there, you got brighter stars, Sheliak and Sulafat. These are Arabic names for the entire constellation, for the constellation of Lyra. And they're 3.5 and 3.3 magnitude, quite a bit brighter. So we can see this parallelogram of stars below bright Vega up here. But just next to Vega, within a degree or so, just over a degree from Vega, is Epsilon Lyrae. And Epsilon Lyrae is a very famous multiple star system. And so this is something that also will hold up to the moon. The moon's going to be south of there. So the moon's not right on top of it. And a 4.7 magnitude, it looks like to your eye. But if you look at that in a telescope, you might be able to pull that apart in binoculars. This is a double-double. You got a binary star and a binary star. You've got about, 3.5 arc minutes. So you got about 3.5 arc minutes that separate these 2 pairs of stars, and just over 2 arc seconds, 2.5 arc seconds that separate the stars in each of these pairs. Now, a degree, remember you hold your finger out at arm's length, that's 1 degree. A degree is 60 arc minutes. So 3.5 arc minutes, 3 arc minutes would be a 20th of a degree, would be that separation of these. So that's a wide separation for a binary star system, but everything's moving together. And so these do seem to be associated in space. 1 arc minute can be broken down into 60 arc seconds. So this 2 arc seconds you see is a factor of 60. 90, a factor of 90 or 100 smaller than the separation of this pair. So you've got 2 widely separated pairs of stars like this. And these 2 stars are the orbit. You can see these orbit. You can't see these orbit this week, but over the years, over the decades, you can see that these stars are actually moving relative to one another, and you can track those orbits. So that's something worth checking out if you've got a small telescope. Bright moonlit skies. Enjoy seeing Lyra, the constellation, with bright Vega, 5th brightest star in the sky there. See it very high overhead at 3:30, 3 to 4 in the morning. but it's just coming up in the east as it gets dark. It's up in the sky pretty well as it gets dark. It's not just coming over the horizon. It's well up in the east. So Vega and Deneb will be well up in the east. Altair is just trying to crest the horizon as it gets dark. More about this grouping of stars as the summer unfolds. But this is what we got. We can continue to look at Saturn and Mars in the morning sky. We can watch the moon occult another star, this time a very bright star, as it moves through there. And then we can enjoy Lyra and Epsilon Lyrae in particular. And think about that double-double. That's often, if you search this, this would often be called the double-double. Double star is a name you'll see for it out there quite a bit. So that's what we got for you this week. We hope you have great skies, and we hope you have a great weekend. As always, thanks for watching, everybody.